Welcome to my series where I'm going to paint and sketch things in my journal that I find in my yard. Technically, I guess I didn't find these since I planted them, but let's start with some cosmos. I've got these white ones, and then I also have these like bright, beautiful magenta ones, and you can see they have these yellow centers and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 petals that are slightly overlapping. And then some of them are like this one, where they're kind of loose and flowy and frilly. And then we've got some buds in here.
Hello friends. So for this series, I'm not going to go too crazy into detail. I don't want to make this into something that is overwhelming for me.
Some of them inside the garden box and then some of them like sprawling and dancing over the sides of the edge. So let's do that.
Hello friends. So for this series, I'm not going to go too crazy into detail for the entire video for each subject that I paint. I don't want to make this something that is too overwhelming for me. I want it to be fun. So I'll be popping in here and there just to explain what I'm doing for each step. So I don't always go in and sketch my paintings in first. Sometimes I just go right into it with paint. But when it comes to painting perspectives, I definitely find it's a lot easier to first sketch it out. And this is how you're going to learn how to draw better and have more interesting compositions by learning a little bit of perspective. So for my composition and placement on my page, I wanted it to be as if we're looking at it from the top view and from the corner, and it's sort of fading off the edge of my paper. So I'm sketching out the 3 planks of wood that'll be on both sides, and then I'm just lightly sketching in where I want my flowers to be. Now, I don't have this many flowers in my box. I wanted it to be a little bit fuller. This is actually from the beginning of June. I've been painting things from summer in my sketchbook since June, and I just haven't wanted to edit the videos, but now I'm at a point where I want to. So yeah, my box looks a bit fuller now. It has more veggies in it and such, but this is how it looked then. So I'm just sketching them out very loosely. Now each Cosmo, they have roughly like 6 petals. It doesn't have to be exact, but I just want to place them so that when I get to painting, I sort of know where everything is and I don't have to like overthink it. I'm including some buds in there just so I don't forget them because they are pretty significant when it comes to looking at a big bush of Cosmo flowers. They've got those really cool buds, and then the sepal underneath is spiky and it comes out from the sides. But yeah, I want some to be overhanging and drooping over the side and just dancing and just being free and pretty. So that's what I'm doing first, and then I will go in and take my kneaded eraser and lift up all the dark pencil just so we have a really nice light outline. Feel free to use the photo on the right if you want to paint along your own or sketch it out yourself. I'd love for you to recreate your own if you feel like it, or you could just watch the process. If this perspective seems a little bit difficult for you, that's totally fine. Why not just do the painting facing you the long way? So maybe just create a box facing you and then have the flowers filling it up. And I actually have a tutorial in my upcoming book, Watercolor in 5 Simple Steps, and it is a garden bed filled with marigolds and roses and flowers. And I really enjoyed that tutorial, so I wanted to kind of recreate it here as well, but from real life.
All right, we've got our basic sketch in, and now I'm just going to go inside and give it some color.
Like I mentioned earlier, I do like to go in with a kneaded eraser and just lift up some of that extra pencil line so that there's a nice soft line underneath. I don't always mind pencil lines showing through, but sometimes I do, especially when I'm painting white flowers. But for my yellow centers, I am using a yellow ochre mixture with a little bit of gamboge, like yellow, or you can use a cadmium yellow, or you can do a bright yellow center like in the beginning of the video, I showed you the magenta ones have a really bright center. It really depends. My mood was making this a little bit more on the boho-y side, if that's even a word. And then for my whites of my flowers, I'm using a very diluted mixture of Payne's Gray. And I'm outlining some of the petals, and then I'm just pulling from that outline to soften it. So you see how I'm just outlining, and I'm using a very small round brush. I think this is either a 2 or a 1. Because my painting's small, I really want to fit as much as I can on the journal page. And then some of them I'm just literally going in and just filling them in with one wash. So there's different ways to do this. It depends on your style. It depends on what you find to be fun. So do it however you feel. And as far as the color goes, so we are trying to create white, and of course it's not actually white. But with watercolor, to create white, you have to just use soft washes. So if you want your cosmos to be a little bit more cooler, you can use a soft blue like cerulean blue. If you want them to be warmer, you can use sepia or even yellow ochre. It really depends on your undertone. If you want them to be very like light pink, to match the magenta flowers, you can use a very, very light wash of quinacridone rose or anything that anything you want. Play around with it. Purples even make really nice whites. So back to how I'm doing this, I'm just filling it in with a very light wash, and then later I'm going to go in with a darker value and I'm going to add some detail to my flower. And if you want, you can add your yellows in after if you don't want them to touch at all. So you can add the centers of your flowers in after. And then on this side I'm using magenta. I'm literally using the color magenta from Winsor & Newton. And then I'm also mixing in a little bit of opera rose into some of my flowers because I just absolutely love the brightness of that color. It's one of my favorite colors. So opera rose by Winsor & Newton. Daniel Smith has a rose opera as well that I really like, but I'm out of that one. And I just always buy the opera rose. And for these, I'm just kind of going in and creating the loose petals. You can see that these are not perfect in any sense of the word. They're just very loose. So I'm just going to continue to fill these in with a little bit of a different color. So this is where I added the opera rose. You can layer these colors if you'd like. You can even make different flowers if you want. So I'm going to fill this in, and then I'm going to go in with some sap green and I will create my stems. I'm using the same brush here. I'm just using the tip of my brush and I'm creating these long sort of wispy lines for my stems. So they kind of dance a lot, Cosmos. They aren't really rigid. They dance around is the best word to describe them. And then I'm also going to add in some of those buds that I was talking about. So they have these little oval tops and then they've got these long little sepals on them is what they're called. So I'm just going to put the ovals in first and then I'll put in the sepals after. But just like that, they're like little spikes. And I'm just going to add in some that maybe I didn't sketch in before, just that I am looking at now and I see need something there. But you could do that also at the end when you have everything in. Now I will mix in some different colors into my sap green. I don't always just use it straight from the tube. Sometimes I do, but I add in some yellows. I find that the green on Cosmos tend to be a little bit on the cooler side, but again, I'm going for a little bit of a boho-y vintage vibe here. So with the yellow ochre, I'm sticking with a bit of a warmer green, and then later I'll add some more detail. So for the box color, I mixed up some burnt sienna with some yellow ochre, and this is just kind of getting that box in, the shape and the underpainting, if you will, the first layer. So I'm not going to do this perfectly. At first I thought maybe I'll just paint each wood plank by itself, but I'm just going to do a wash now, get in the shape, and then I'll go back in after and I'll add in my details. So I'm just mapping that out. Again, if the perspective is a little bit difficult for you, keep playing with it. It's very important, I think, to know a little bit about perspective, and it's easy to learn. It is. I mean, I learned perspective from interior design school, honestly. But growing up just doing art, I learned this. So it's not something that you just know. So if you feel like it's difficult, do not feel like you're alone at all, because it can be tricky. But yeah, that's my TED Talk for that. I'm just kind of lightly sketching in the back there. We're not going to see that fully. It's going to be in the background. And then I did want my trellis showing through a little bit back there. So I sat here is it going to show over here? Yeah, why not? So I'm just doing some really light lines, and this is the Payne's Gray again. And maybe I added a little bit of, I'm not sure, to make it more gray. Maybe a little yellow. If you want to mix up a gray, use blue and orange and yellow, or red and yellow, and just mix that up and you'll be able to create so many different tones of gray. Just filling in the box with a little bit of a light brown color, same as from my box. And then I'm just going to start stippling in and dropping in some green into that mixture. So it kind of spreads out very softly. And here I'm actually using Green Gold by Daniel Smith. It's an amazing color to have. You can also use sap green mixed with lemon yellow. If you don't have it, it's totally fine. And I'm just adding in a little bit of my grass and just the grass in the bottom of the garden box. And I'll let that dry. And while that's drying, I'm using a liner brush. So this is a Christy Rice 000 liner, or small round. And I am just outlining my flowers with a darker tone, a darker value of that Payne's Gray mixture. And you can see it's a style. It's what I want it to look like. This is what I like. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. You can add some more shadow and value in there without outlining it. Just want to add some more value in there than what you have in the beginning. So maybe some very subtle lines. You don't have to fully outline. And if it's ever too dark, you can go in and just lift it up while it's still wet. But I'm just going to outline all of my white flowers the same way, adding some little lines within the petals as well, and maybe creating petals that we don't see from our drawing. So I'm going to outline each of my flowers, even the magenta ones, and I'll also take the time in here to maybe deepen the center of my yellows if any of them need it, and add some that I may have added a flower in now and need a center. So I'll be quiet and let you watch. All right, those are all outlined, so I'm going to mix up a deeper color of the box color here, and I'm just going to lightly add that onto everywhere that there's wood. And it doesn't, again, it doesn't need to be perfect. We're not looking for perfection with these. And I'm just adding that on top. And then after this dries, so you can let it dry, or you can make it dry with a heat gun or whatever. And then we're going to go in and add our details to it. And we're going to use a liner brush to pull out those planks of wood and add some grain and all that. So I hit this with a heat gun. I have no patience. And honestly, I want these to be quick and fun for me, so that's why we get the heat gun. And I'm using the dry brush technique. Here I'm just using, I have a filbert here. This is a filbert round. You can use any brush. You can use a round brush for this. And what I do is I just tap it into the paint that's wet, and there's very little water on my brush. So this is how you're going to get a dry brush texture. And then we're just ever so lightly using those bristles and touching them to the paper, and we're not putting too much pressure. And this is giving us the wood grain texture. and you can press down a little harder to get a little bit of a darker value, and then lift it a little more and you'll get a very light value. So now I'm mixing in some burnt umber, or you can even deepen your brown mixture with some Payne's Gray. And I am outlining or adding lines in where I want my wood panels to be, or planks. I'm not really sure what to call them. I think these are like 2x10, or they're 2x8. I know he cut them. I don't know. But either way, you know what I'm talking about. So you can see the edge of the wood here. You can see the edge of the plank. We're just painting these little rectangles, and then on top a long rectangle. And you can see from the reference image here that I didn't even follow it exact. You don't need to do it exact. So mine's a little bit shorter and longer. You can make it taller and fatter. And you can see the planks on the left side, they go behind the front of these planks in the front on the right side. So you're not going to see that edge. But we're looking down and you can see the top of the box and the top of the flowers. And now for those frilly, crazy little leaves that these have, I'm just literally using that liner brush. I think this is a different liner brush. I don't know. I have so many brushes on my table. I just kind of switch between them. Sometimes it's good to have two brushes if you're working in two colors and you want to work fast. This one I think I just got from Hobby Lobby. It's like a cheap one. But it works really nice, and they have good sales in there, but yeah, try not to go there too much. And I'm just adding in some dimension in here. So I love to use Daniel Smith's Undersea Green. You can add a little bit of Payne's Gray or a little bit of brown to your sap green and create different tones, because you see different values. It's going to give you a little bit more interest. And I'm just tapping and pulling and creating those frilly leaves. And I'm pulling some more from my buds. And some are overhanging on this edge of the garden box, like this. And yeah, I'm just adding in more buds or more, whatever I feel like needs it. They're doing construction next door if you hear anything. I don't know if you can hear it. I do have my mute on. So in the background behind the garden box, it does go back further. So I'm just giving that sort of idea of some more greenery back there just by doing a very light blotting wash and just filling in any negative space over here. So it's like, oh, there's something back there, but it's not very visual. It's not in, I have corn back there. So I'm just doing these long corn stripes in the background and just filling that in. And these are they're really nice studies, and it's just fun because I know in a few years I'm going to look back and I'm going to remember my first garden. I have some salvia in there, so there's a little bit of purple back there. And that was a little bit too much, so I just blotted it and lifted it up. Now for the ground, I'm just going to add in that same brownish mixture. I add a little bit more brown to it. And I'm just doing a very light wash because these little studies or subjects, they're not going to be like complete squares. They're kind of just sitting on the page. So they're going to be a little messy or just like incomplete almost and fade out. So I'm doing a very light wash, and then I'm doing a little bit of a darker brown and just dropping in little tiny dots and mixing up colors, a little bit of yellow ochre in there. And then I'll let that dry, and as that dries, I'm going in with my bleed proof white, and I'm going to pull some highlights from my cosmos, and I'm going to add some lines in there. And then I'm going to add some cosmos. I'm going to paint some cosmos with this that I want to overhang on the box. So this is opaque, so I can go right over that watercolor. And that doesn't look like a cosmo, but it's okay. It's like a bud maybe that's opening. Looks more like a lily of the valley. But you know what I'm saying. I just go in and create some more flowers. Now, if you're still here listening, I created this series for myself because this past year, a little bit over a year now, I've just felt like I cannot paint anything without feeling like I need to film it and make it into a tutorial. So I have either not painted at all because I just feel too overwhelmed by that thought of just setting everything up and making sure it's kind of perfect, and I never do anything like perfect, but making sure that it's okay to be filmed and either do it voiceover or talk through it. Or I film them and then I just don't even bother editing them because I just get overwhelmed. So yeah, I have a lot of tutorials in the queue that I just haven't posted. The book was a lot. I'm so glad that I did it. Here I'm just when I get back into the tutorial, I am stippling in some little brown dots in here. So sepia is a great neutral brown, darker tone, and I'm just stippling that into the centers because if you look at Cosmos, they have little centers to them, little tiny black dots. But back to, I'm putting in grass now too, using a dark green. This is me, guys. I'm sorry if I'm a little all over the place, but I just, I'm doing these for myself. And also I want to encourage everyone to take the time to go into your yard and look around. It's crazy how many things that you might see. So I told you that I filmed this in June. Since then, I've seen so many cool things that I am going to paint in here, and you're going to see as well. But we had fireflies like I've never seen before. I'm adding in little buds and colors in here. I do have ADHD, folks. If you don't know me, I do have ADHD, so I am a little chatty. And yeah, so I skip around a little bit. I mixed in a little bit of white into the green to create some highlights and pull out some pretty green colors, and I'll do that also in the stems. But yeah, so I've seen a woodpecker, I see a tree frog on a plant, there's some toads, there was tadpoles in my sister's pool, just so many cool things in the backyard. I had my first morning glories come in growing on a fence, hummingbirds at the feeder. But yeah, it's really amazing the things that you can see in your yard. You can do this. I want to do things I've seen on my walks, things in my garden. There's just so many ways that you can do this. So I hope this encourages you. I'm beyond happy and grateful that you're here. And if you have any questions or anything at all, just let me know in the comments. Have a wonderful, beautiful day, and I will see you in the next tutorial.